The night before my big day was supposed to feel magical. I had imagined it for months, maybe even years. The quiet excitement, the nervous laughter, the feeling that everything I'd worked for was finally about to begin. Instead, I stood barefoot in my apartment kitchen at 1:47 a.m., staring at my phone as if the words on the screen might rearrange themselves into something less impossible. Cancelled. One word, one email, and the first domino fell. At first, I told myself it had to be a mistake. Vendors don't cancel the night before. Venues don't suddenly become unavailable. People don't wake up and decide to ruin the most important day of your life. Not without a reason, not without someone pushing them. My hands trembled as I refreshed the page. Same message, same cold confirmation. My wedding venue, the historic Rosemont Hall, had cancelled my reservation effective immediately. No explanation, just a vague line about unforeseen circumstances. I called the coordinator, straight to voicemail. I called again, voicemail. Then the florist texted, "I'm so sorry, I can't fulfill tomorrow. Please don't contact me further." My throat tightened. Then the caterer, payment reversed. Contract void. Payment reversed? That didn't make sense. I paid every deposit months ago. I opened my banking app, and my blood went cold. Every vendor charge, every deposit, every transaction, was gone. Not refunded, not reversed normally, removed, as if they had never existed. As if someone had reached into my life and erased months of planning with a single hand. My fiancé, Adrian, was asleep in the bedroom, unaware that our future was collapsing in real time. I walked into the room slowly and sat on the edge of the bed. "Adrian," I whispered. He stirred. What time is it?" "My venue just cancelled." Silence. Then his eyes opened sharply. "What?" I held up my phone. He blinked, reading, then sat up. "That can't be real." "It is," I said. He grabbed his own phone, already dialing. But as he listened, his face changed. "What did they say?" I asked. Adrian swallowed hard. They won't talk to me. They said the decision is final." My heart pounded. "Why?" Adrian hesitated. Then softly, "They mentioned legal concerns." "Legal concerns?" I stared. "What legal concerns?" "It's a wedding." Adrian's jaw tightened. "I don't know." But something in his voice told me that wasn't fully true. I stood up. "I'm going to Rosemont Hall," I said. Adrian shot up. "Right now? It's the middle of the night." "I don't care." 15 minutes later, we were driving through empty streets, city lights smeared across the windshield like tears. Rosemont Hall rose ahead of us, silent, elegant, dark. A place that should have been glowing with preparation. Instead, it looked like a tomb. We approached the entrance. A security guard stepped out immediately. "You can't be here," he said firmly. "I'm the bride," I snapped. "My wedding is tomorrow." The guard's expression didn't change. "It's not anymore." My chest burned. "Who told you that?" He hesitated, then said carefully, "We received instructions." "From who?" The guard glanced away. "I can't disclose that." Adrian stepped forward, voice sharp. "Did someone pay you to cancel?" The guard stiffened. "No." But his eyes betrayed him. I leaned closer. "Please," I said quietly. "This is my life. Just tell me what happened." The guard exhaled. Then, reluctantly, he said, "A woman came earlier tonight. She had documents. She said she represented the family." My stomach dropped. "Family?" Adrian went still beside me. I whispered, "What family?" The guard's voice lowered. "She said, she was your mother-in-law." The world tilted. I turned slowly toward Adrian. His face was unreadable. "Your mother?" I whispered. Adrian's eyes flickered. "She wouldn't." But he didn't finish. Because we both knew something terrifying. His mother, Celeste Archer, had never wanted this wedding. She had smiled politely. She had complimented the flowers. But her eyes always held something else. Control. Possession. A quiet belief that Adrian belonged to her world, not mine. I had thought time would soften her. I had been wrong. I felt my breath shaking. "She planned this," I whispered. Adrian's voice was strained. "No, there has to be another explanation." But the guard spoke again. "She told us if we didn't cancel immediately, the hall would face a lawsuit by morning." My blood ran cold. "A lawsuit? On what grounds?" The guard swallowed. "She claimed the funds were suspicious. That you were using money that wasn't yours." I froze. That accusation wasn't random. That was personal. That was designed to destroy me. My mind raced back to one conversation, months ago, when Celeste had smiled over tea and asked lightly, "So tell me, where does your family's money come from?" I had laughed, thinking it was small talk. Now I realized, it was reconnaissance. Adrian's voice cracked. "This is insane." I turned away from him, staring at Rosemont Hall's dark doors. The night before my big day, everything had fallen apart, and it wasn't an accident. It was an attack, and whoever planned it knew exactly where to strike. I took out my phone. My hands steady now, not shaking, not begging. I opened my contacts, and I scrolled to one name I hadn't used in years. Elaine Porter, the attorney who owed me one favor. The woman who never lost. I pressed call. The line rang once, twice, then, hello? Elaine's voice, sharp and awake. I swallowed. Elaine, it's me. A pause. Then, calmly, tell me what they did. I looked at the dark hall and whispered the truth. They planned to ruin my life overnight. Elaine's voice turned ice cold. Then we ruined their plan first. Elaine didn't ask unnecessary questions. That was what made her dangerous. While most people panicked, she calculated. I could hear papers moving on her end, the quiet sound of someone already building a case in her mind. Go home, she said firmly. Do not confront anyone else tonight. My chest tightened. Elaine, my wedding is tomorrow. It isn't anymore, she replied, blunt. Not until we know exactly what was filed and why. Do you understand me? Adrian's hands clenched on the steering wheel. I could feel his anger radiating through the car, but it was mixed with something else. Fear, because deep down, he knew his mother had teeth. Elaine continued, I want every email, every contract, every payment receipt forwarded to me. Tonight, I can do that, I whispered. And one more thing, she added. Do you have any family assets tied to your accounts? I blinked. What? Your fiancé's family, Elaine clarified. Anything shared? Anything joint? I glanced at Adrian. His face was hard. No, I said slowly. Everything is under my name. I insisted. Elaine's pause was sharp. Good, that means you're harder to trap. Trap, the word echoed. I swallowed. Elaine, why would Celeste do this? Elaine's voice softened for half a second. Because this isn't about a wedding. It's about control. She's trying to remind you who has power. The call ended. When Adrian and I returned to the apartment, it no longer felt like a home. It felt like a bunker. The air was thick with unanswered questions. Adrian paced like a caged animal. She wouldn't do something illegal. I turned toward him. Adrian, she accused me of fraud. His jaw twitched. She doesn't know what she's talking about. She knows exactly what she's doing, I snapped. He froze. I immediately regretted the sharpness, but exhaustion and betrayal were raw nerves. I'm sorry, I murmured. I'm just scared. Adrian's shoulders dropped. I know, he said quietly. I can't believe she'd go this far. I stared at him. That's the problem, I whispered. You still think she has limits. At 3:18 a.m., my phone buzzed again. A text. From Celeste. I tried to protect you from embarrassment. Thank me later. My blood went cold. She wasn't even hiding it. Adrian lunged for my phone. Let me call her. No, I said instantly. Elaine said no confrontation. Adrian's face contorted. She cancelled our wedding. And she wants you emotional, I replied. Don't give her that. Adrian stopped. That was when I saw it. He wasn't just angry. He was torn. Because Celeste wasn't just some stranger. She was his mother. And mothers don't lose easily. Morning arrived with no sleep. At 7 a.m., the first calls started. My bridesmaids. The photographer. Guests already flying in. Everything unraveling. By 8:30, social media had begun whispering. Wedding cancelled last minute? Scandal? Fraud claim? The humiliation was spreading before the truth even existed. Adrian's father called. Son, what's happening? Adrian's voice was stiff. We're handling it. Then Celeste called. Adrian stared at the screen. He didn't answer. She called again. Again. Finally, he picked up. Mother. Celeste's voice was calm, almost amused. Sweetheart, I heard there's confusion. Adrian's tone sharpened. Confusion? You destroyed everything. Celeste sighed. Adrian, don't be dramatic. I saved you. Saved me from what? Celeste paused. From marrying into uncertainty. I snatched the phone. Uncertainty? You mean me? Celeste's voice didn't waver. My dear, a woman with no clear financial background arranging a wedding that expensive, people ask questions. My hands shook with rage. I paid for it with my own money. Celeste hummed. Did you? Or did someone else? Adrian's voice snapped. Stop. Celeste ignored him. I simply made sure Rosemont Hall protected itself. If they believed there was even a risk. A risk you invented, I hissed. Celeste's voice turned sharper. A risk I investigated. And perhaps, my dear, you should ask yourself why you were so eager to keep accounts separate. The accusation hit like poison. She was twisting my caution into suspicion. Celeste continued smoothly. Canceling was merciful. Imagine the scandal if the authorities arrived mid-ceremony. Adrian exploded. Authorities? Celeste sighed. Relax. It's handled. The hall will reopen once matters are clarified. I swallowed hard. What do you want? The silence on her end was almost satisfied. I want my son protected, she said softly. And I want you to understand your place. My place. The words burned. Adrian's voice was shaking. Mom, you don't get to decide that. Celeste's voice turned icy. Adrian, you are my son. I built the world you live in. Then she added, almost casually, and remember who signs the trusts. The call ended. Adrian's face drained of color. Trusts. Elaine had asked about assets. Now I understood. Celeste didn't just have influence. She had financial weapons. Adrian sank onto the couch, staring into nothing. She controls, a lot, he whispered. I sat beside him slowly. How much? His voice cracked. My inheritance. The family investments. Everything is under her umbrella until she decides otherwise. I felt sick. So she can punish you too. Adrian nodded once. That was her leverage. Not love. Control. At 10 a.m., Elaine arrived. She walked in wearing a dark blazer, hair pinned back, eyes like steel. She didn't greet us with sympathy. She greeted us with strategy. I reviewed the filings, she said immediately, placing a folder on the table. My heart pounded. What filings? Elaine opened the folder. Celeste didn't just threaten a lawsuit. She filed an emergency injunction request claiming financial misrepresentation. Adrian stood. On what evidence? Elaine's smile was thin. None. That's the point. It's a pressure tactic. I whispered, can she do that? She can file, Elaine replied. Whether it stands is another matter. Adrian's fists clenched. So what now? Elaine's gaze locked onto mine. Now, she said calmly, we stop playing defense. I swallowed. How? Elaine slid one paper forward. This, she said, is a counterclaim. My eyes widened. A counterclaim? Elaine nodded. For defamation, interference with contract, emotional damages, and, she paused, elder trust exploitation. Adrian froze. Elder trust exploitation? Elaine leaned back. Celeste's money isn't clean. The trusts she mentioned? I've seen the structures before. My breath caught. What does that mean? Elaine's voice lowered. It means she's not just controlling Adrian. She's hiding something. And desperate people do desperate things the night before a wedding. I stared at Elaine, fear mixing with something else now. Hope. Elaine, what are you saying? Elaine's eyes sharpened. I'm saying, she whispered, Celeste planned this because she's afraid of what happens after tomorrow. Adrian's voice shook. After tomorrow? Elaine nodded slowly. Because once you're married, she slid the final paper forward. You become family. I stared at the document. And my blood went ice cold. It wasn't about the venue. It wasn't about fraud. It was about one clause. A clause that would have made me, legally, a beneficiary. Adrian whispered, horrified, she would lose control. Elaine's voice was calm as death. Exactly. And suddenly, everything made sense. The night before my big day, everything fell apart. Because it was planned. Because Celeste Archer wasn't ruining a wedding. She was protecting an empire. And now, we were about to burn her plan down. Elaine's office smelled like cold coffee and paper. Like a place where emotion didn't survive long enough to interfere with outcomes. She sat across from me and Adrian, a folder open between us like a blade. Celeste Archer has been controlling the Archer family trust for 22 years, she said calmly. That trust holds the company shares, the property portfolio, and the private accounts your fiancé has never had direct access to. Adrian's jaw was tight. I knew she had control. I didn't know she'd weaponize it. Elaine's eyes didn't soften. People who build empires through control never give it up willingly. Marriage is a legal shift. Overnight, you become a risk she can't manage. I stared at the papers. So she attacked me before I could become family. Elaine nodded. She didn't cancel your wedding because she hates you. She cancelled it because she fears what you represent. Adrian's voice cracked. A wife. No, Elaine corrected. A witness. Silence landed hard. Elaine leaned forward. You need to understand something. Celeste's injunction filing is weak. But the fact that she filed it means she's desperate. That's when people make mistakes. Adrian swallowed. What mistake? Elaine slid another document forward. This one. I read the header, my throat tightening. Trust asset reallocation emergency transfer request. My eyes widened. She's moving money. Elaine's tone sharpened. She's trying to clean the house before anyone looks inside. Adrian stood abruptly. So we stop her. Elaine shook her head. We let her move. I blinked. What? Elaine's voice was ice calm. We let her commit it on record. Adrian froze. Elaine. She thinks she's playing chess alone, Elaine said. We're about to show her the board. That afternoon, Elaine filed the counterclaim. Defamation, contract interference, emotional damages, bad faith injunction, and then, the one Celeste would never expect, financial misconduct review petition Archer Family Trust. It wasn't an accusation, it was a spotlight. The court scheduled an emergency hearing within 24 hours. Celeste Archer arrived at the courthouse the next morning dressed like nothing could touch her. Pearl earrings, designer coat, hair flawless, the same calm arrogance she always wore. When she saw me, her smile tightened. My dear, she said softly, I see you've chosen chaos. I looked at her steadily. You chose it first. Adrian stepped beside me, spine straight for once. Mother, stop. Celeste's eyes flickered with irritation. Adrian, darling, don't embarrass yourself. You don't understand what's at stake. Adrian's voice was low. I understand you ruined my wedding. Celeste exhaled. I prevented a mistake. Elaine's voice cut through like a knife. Mrs. Archer, save your speeches for the judge. Celeste's gaze snapped to Elaine, recognition flashing. Elaine Porter. Elaine nodded politely. Celeste Archer. The courtroom filled quickly. Not with wedding guests now, but with attorneys, clerks, and curious faces drawn by wealth and scandal. The judge entered, stern and unimpressed. Mrs. Archer, he began, you filed an injunction claiming financial misrepresentation by the bride. Present your evidence. Celeste rose smoothly. Your Honor, I merely acted to protect my family from reputational harm. The wedding expenses were unusually high for the bride's declared background. The judge's eyes narrowed. That is not evidence. Celeste's smile faltered slightly. It is concern. Elaine stood. Concern does not void contracts, Your Honor. Malice does. The judge turned. Ms. Porter? Elaine's voice was calm. We are here because Mrs. Archer weaponized the legal system to sabotage a marriage for financial control. Celeste scoffed. Ridiculous. Elaine continued without blinking. My client was one signature away from becoming a legal beneficiary in the Archer trust structure through marriage. Mrs. Archer acted the night before to prevent that shift. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Celeste's jaw tightened. The judge looked directly at her. Mrs. Archer, is that true? Celeste's voice was still polished. The trust is private. Elaine smiled faintly. Private, yes. Untouchable, no. Elaine placed a document on the bench. We request discovery of the Archer Trust's emergency transfer requests filed yesterday. Celeste's composure cracked for the first time. That is irrelevant. The judge's gavel snapped. It is very relevant. Emergency transfers suggest concealment. Celeste's eyes flashed. Your Honor, this is harassment. Elaine's tone turned colder. Then explain why you tried to move $78 million overnight. The room went silent. Adrian's head snapped toward his mother. 78 million? He whispered. Celeste's face drained. That was the mistake. Elaine leaned in. Desperate people clean house, Celeste. Honest people don't. Celeste's voice rose sharply. You have no right. The judge cut her off. Mrs. Archer, answer the question. Celeste's lips trembled. It was standard allocation. Elaine stepped forward. Standard allocation doesn't happen the night before a wedding you sabotaged. The judge's eyes narrowed further. Mrs. Archer, this court orders a temporary freeze of trust-related transfers pending audit. Celeste stiffened. No. Gavel. Order. Adrian stared at her like she was a stranger. You were moving money because of me? He whispered. Celeste's mask shattered. Because of her. She pointed at me, voice sharp with pure anger. She would have taken everything. She doesn't belong in our world. The courtroom gasped. The judge's voice thundered. Control yourself. Celeste's breathing was heavy now. The calm was gone. The truth was showing. Adrian's voice broke, low and wounded. Mom, you destroyed my wedding because you were afraid of losing control. Celeste's eyes hardened. I built this family. Adrian shook his head slowly. You built a cage. Silence hit like impact. Elaine spoke again, softer but lethal. Your Honor, we also submit evidence that Mrs. Archer has used trust funds for personal leverage, threatening beneficiaries with financial exclusion. That constitutes fiduciary abuse. The judge inhaled sharply. This court will appoint an independent trustee pending investigation. Celeste went still. Independent trustee meant one thing. She was losing power. Right here, right now. Celeste's voice dropped into something almost pleading. Adrian? Adrian didn't move. He looked at her with a kind of heartbreak that felt heavier than anger. I wanted one day, he whispered. One day that wasn't about your control. Celeste's eyes flickered, searching for her usual grip. It wasn't there. The judge's gavel struck again. Court adjourned. Audit begins immediately. Outside, reporters swarmed. Cameras flashed. Celeste Archer, who had always lived untouchable behind wealth and silence, was suddenly a public headline. Adrian turned to me, voice shaking. "I'm sorry." I looked at him quietly. "Sorry doesn't fix last night." "I know," he whispered. "But I'm done being afraid of her." Elaine stepped beside us. "Rosemont Hall called," she said calmly. "They reinstated the reservation. They realized the injunction was baseless." My breath caught. "They did?" Elaine nodded. "Your wedding can happen. If you still want it." Adrian looked at me, eyes raw. "Do you?" I stood very still. The night before my big day, everything had fallen apart. But in the collapse, something else had been revealed. Truth. Power. Choice. I exhaled slowly. "Not tomorrow." Adrian froze. "What?" I met his eyes. "Not as a wedding she tried to destroy." Elaine's gaze softened slightly. I continued. "If we marry, it will be on our terms. Not as an emergency response to her control." Adrian swallowed, then nodded. "You're right." Celeste exited the courthouse behind us, surrounded by lawyers, face tight with humiliation. She looked at me once. No apology, only realization that she had planned everything. And still lost, because she underestimated something she couldn't buy, a woman who refuses to be erased. Weeks later, the Archer Trust audit exposed what Elaine suspected. Hidden transfers, personal misuse, threats disguised as family protection. Celeste Archer was removed permanently as trustee. Adrian received independent control of his life for the first time. And me? I didn't lose a wedding. I gained a future without chains. On a quiet evening months later, Adrian and I stood at a small ceremony. No spectacle, no empire watching, no control lurking. Just vows, just truth. Elaine attended, seated in the front row, expression calm. Afterward, she smiled at me. "Now," she said softly, "it wasn't planned by anyone else." I smiled back. It was finally mine. And that was the real ending. Not a ruined big day. But a life no one could sabotage again.